People who have power are not necessarily smarter than others. Beyond a certain level of intelligence and level in the hierarchy, everyone is smart. What differentiates people is their political skill and savvy. As this quote by the preeminent power scholar Jeffrey Pfeffer suggests, your ability to use power and organizational politics to your own advantage are crucial to your success as a leader. Yet, what is power, and how can you wield it not as a blunt instrument, but a fine-tuned tool to get others to do things in an effective and ethical manner? Scholars have been studying power as long as they have been studying human behavior. In essence, power is a central element of society and social life, and organizations. Broadly, scholars distinguish between two types of power. On the one hand, hard power is based on the notion of control and dependence, as the asymmetric control over valued resources in social relations. For example, an organization may enforce compliance with organizational goals by tying their achievement to financial rewards. On the other hand, soft power is based on the notion of influence and persuasion, as the capacity to influence other actors with political interest in mind. For example, a leader may persuade a peer in a different unit to work with them on a project by pointing out the mutual benefits of collaboration. We often tend to think of hard power as something that is potentially negative, unethical, and more traditional, whereas soft power is often perceived to be more desirable, ethical, and modern. While it is true that in general, human civilization seems to be moving more to the right, soft power side of the spectrum, this is of course not necessarily the case. Both traditional and modern organizations are based on the exercise of both hard and soft power. In reality, leaders will affect significant social outcomes through combinations of hard and soft power, depending on the circumstances and what economic, social, and cultural resources are available to them. So, how can you, as a leader, use the resources that are available to you to exercise your power? Research suggests that there are 8 types of resources or political capital that leaders can use to affect organizational decisions, actions, and outcomes. We will go through those 8 types one by one. Economic capital stems from the resources derived from the ability or capacity to bring financial resources to an organization. For example, you may be a shareholder, client, or benefactor of an organization who brings or withholds money from the firm. A less obvious source of power within organizations is cultural capital, which is defined as the resources derived from embodiment of and ability to deploy the language, cognition, values, and indicators of the organization and the rules of the game. For example, long-standing organizational or industry veterans often have a deep understanding of the quote-unquote smell of an organization, how things actually get done, and what the unwritten rules of doing business are. This means that cultural capital may be difficult and very time-consuming to acquire. Knowledge capital stems from the resources derived from organizationally relevant individual abilities, talents, education, and experience. For example, some employees may have deep expertise in how to run or change a particular system or piece of equipment in an organization. This will give them considerable leverage over the organization. Social capital is the access stemming from the social ties that exist in social systems, including affiliations, sources of information, referrals, and commitments available through social networks. For example, the networks that you can build through education or family or friendship can help you access information, take the pulse of the organization, and win over others. Symbolic capital stems from the resources accrued through category membership, whether acquired, job titles, credentials, formal educational degrees, or functional background, or ascribed, gender, race, ethnicity, and age. For example, a commanding job title or degree from a prestigious university can be a valuable source of political capital. Yet, not all sources of symbolic capital are acquired. Others are simply ascribed by sexist, racist, or ageist norms, which can be an important source of privilege for some and disadvantage for others. Reputational capital stems from the resources derived from perceived reputation for successful performance. For example, a star performer who brings in a lot of business, or someone who is renowned for getting things done inside the organization, typically will wield considerable power. Organizational capital stems from the resources derived from control over strategic resources, discretion and legal authority, reward, and coercive power afforded to certain organizational positions. For example, managers with discretion over pay, or executive boards who decide on the strategic direction of the company, or departments that hold the purse strings, such as finance, will typically wield important power in an organization. Finally, institutional capital relates to the resources derived from the ability to define the rules of the game, establish the value of different forms of capital, and create symbolic systems of classification. For example, credit rating agencies Moody's, Standard & Poor's, or Fitch literally create systems to classify organizations according to their creditworthiness. Regulators or governments typically have the power to determine the boundaries of what organizations can or cannot do, and force organizations to play by the rules of the game. This is why organizations have departments like health and safety, compliance, human resources, and legal, which will often be able to tacitly set the rules of what people can do inside the organization. Of course, how you as a leader will be able to deploy the political capital that you have will depend on how well you can mobilize combinations of multiple different forms of capital. This also means that exercising power astutely will require you to carefully modulate your approach depending on the situation. There is no one-size-fits-all approach to wielding power. Finally, it's important to keep in mind that you can convert different forms of political capital. For example, you may be able to convert your cultural capital, for example, your intricate knowledge of how things get done in your organization, to gain symbolic capital, for example, a promotion that comes with a more important job title. Or you can convert economic capital, for example, your savings, into knowledge and social capital that come with a university degree. All in all, any leader, no matter what their hierarchical position, will typically have more political capital at their disposal than they might immediately think they do. How effective you are in exercising your power will depend on your ability to recognize your own political capital and how you convert and mobilize the right combinations of capital for the right context. Being effective as a leader will also involve a keen understanding of the kind of capital other people will have and how they can use it to wield power and influence over you. In the next video, we'll have a closer look at examples of power and how others may use it to influence you.